Okay, here we have a massive problem with Lantana, and it's just growing rapidly through this bush area here, and as you can see it's just overtaking the bushland. Now, what you don't realise is this Lantana, and if you notice here, I'm using a glove because if you get up very, very close to the stem, you see it's got these like little prickles on it. And those prickles are razor sharp. They actually can cut into you. Now this plant also has these flowers and masses prolifically with these flowers. But did you know it's been on the noxious weeds list since 1920? It was put on a list because it was found to kill cattle. So the pastorist put it on a noxious weeds list, and we had to eradicate this weed. And yet, when I was a young kid, this bush area I'm showing you here, we used to ride our push bikes and that through here and go down to the river. Now we can't even get anywhere close to it. Not this way anyway. So it's really becoming a problem in Liverpool. And the more we complain about it, it just seems to fall on deaf ears. It's really got to start to change. We've really got to start adopting some new attitudes and put some strategies into place to eradicate. And I'll look up the definition of that later. But eradicate these weeds from our native bushland areas and allow the wildlife to come back. Okay, here's an area underneath Lewins Bridge on the west bank there towards Liverpool. And all this area up here, I cleared all of the rubbish, all the weeds and everything around here, because about there's actually a concrete service way. Apparently it's no longer in service, but I know from when I was a kid, it never had a lid on it. So I cleared all this area to expose that concrete piece, just in case some child comes down here walking through the bush, walks on a weed and falls into it and be trapped in there. And the two council employees that came out to look at my concerns, they weren't really worried about the fact that there was no lid on the top of the service way, but they did say that something needed to be done. But they turned around to me and they said, "Did you do that?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Well, do you know you can be fined $240,000 because you didn't have permission to do this?" I just blows me away. Like, I'm trying to show things that are being disguised by these weeds. And as you can see, the Lantana up here at the top here is just growing massive again. And it disappoints me in a way because I can clean this all up. Why can't we keep it clear? See, at the moment here underneath here, Anzac Creek's a little bit sort of flowing pretty harsh after the rain we've just had. But when it used to trickle down through the rocks through here and then come down through here, when we were kids we used to make paper boats and play with them and race them down the creek bed here. But up further, I'll show you how the banks are more enclosed by Lantana again. And it's a real shame that we're losing this asset to this weed that should be controlled. Wow, look what the rain has brought, more rubbish from that creek further. Now if you look at the bush at the back there, it's all full of lantana. It's right along the bank here. And when we were kids, we would walk along those banks. There was, you know, like when you're trying to get through lantana, if you get scratched by it, you get these nasty, nasty rashes. And the other thing is too, lantana is not good for people with asthma or hay fever allergies and things like that. And the reason being is because of it's actually upsets, being poisonous plant that it is, upsets the breathing difficulties of humans. And like I said before, it kills cattle. So I don't understand why we are not paying more attention to eradicating these types of weeds. Yet we can spend millions of dollars on COVID, which was born in a lab. And we can't spend a cent on cleaning the health of the land to create healthy lives. Why? I just don't understand. Okay, probably not a real good picture, but as you can see over the bank there's a lot of weeds just growing over plants, and there's a lot of lantana and things like that. You see, my sister, she suffered asthma from when she was a kid. And she suffers more today, not because she's older, but because there's more lantana today than what there was when we were kids. And I really feel for the people like her that suffer from asthma, hay fevers, allergies. We shouldn't be subjected to this bad, poor health. And it's time we did something about it. You know, like, obviously there was money to be made out of COVID. That's why we spent so much money in it. But, you know, there's no money in pulling out weeds. There's no profit in that. And then volunteers like myself and others, we get out here to try and clean up and do the right thing. And then we get told we haven't got permission to do it. And it's the red tapes that we've got to go through to keep our little voluntary groups alive. It bears more on cost of expenses of living. Why? This is good work being done by a lot of volunteers, peoples that like to get in and have a bit more respect for our native bushland and bring the natives back. Why can't it be done properly? Okay, here's another thing. Council's been obvious, or somebody's been through here, and they've pruned back some branches off this bottle brush tree here. And all they do is throw it back into the bush area for all the weeds to climb and give them weeds a habitat. I don't understand the logic to this. Why is it not mulched down or something done with it instead of just tossing it back into the bushland and allowing a landscape for weeds to grow upon? It's just beyond me. I just don't understand. Okay, here's a couple of casuarina or she oaks. Been chopped down, as you can see, by the stumps that have been left here. Again, not even chopped to the ground, they're sticking out of the ground. And again, all we do is just dump the tree on the side. She's right, let the weeds grow over it. Like this, with all the wandering dew growing over it. Soon it'll be covered, and then some kid comes down this hillside and crashes into that with his push bike. It's just an accident waiting to happen. And here's a sign all about the bush regeneration area. And note down here it says, please assist by not depositing lawn clippings, garden waste or rubbish in this area. And whoever chopped these trees down, if it was council or contractor or whoever, they do the same. So you're expecting us not to do something, but your contractors or the council or whoever's chopping these trees down they're allowed to. A bit of a double standard here going on, I think. Okay, here's some beautiful wattle trees that was part of a plantation by volunteers a while back now. But obviously the wattle trees were growing over this pathway here. So they decided to cut them all down, chop them all up. But look where they leave the rubbish. They just throw it back in the bush. Imagine when all these weeds grow up through this again, we're not going to see a proper bush again. It's just going to be rubbish in there. And I just don't understand it. Like, we're supposed to be the city to this new airport. We're going to be bringing people in from overseas, and they're going to walk our pathways in our parks, and they're going to see this sort of rubbish. Seriously? We've got to do something about this. This is just not good. Okay, here's what I'm really talking about. Here's a shopping trolley. It's half grown by weeds. And eventually all of these weeds are going to grow up and over it. And then, you know, somebody wants to wander along. They fall down the edge here on the side of this bank here, and they crash into that. Okay, it might stop them from going into the creek. But the injuries that could be caused by it, it's really a shame. Like, we've got to be doing more about it.
Okay, this is the Department of Primary Industries, New South Wales Weedwise. And this talks about Lantana Camara. Now, as I scroll up, profile, how does this weed affect you? Lantana is a poisonous to animals and humans, invades native grasslands and pastures, invades eucalyptus and pine plantations, fuels bushfire, I've got something interesting on that, can restrict access to bushland and waterways, costs land managers more than $22 million each year to control. Lantana provides some shelter for native fauna. Yeah, right. Human poisoning. All parts of the plant are poisonous if eaten and can cause vomiting, diarrhea, weak muscles, breathing problems, death. Touching Lantana can irritate skin and eyes. What do you do if a person is poisoned? If a patient is unconscious, unresponsive, and having difficulty breathing, dial 000 or get to the emergency section of a hospital immediately. If the patient is conscious and responsive, call the Poisons Information Centre on this number. If going to a hospital, take a piece of the plant to identify it. Okay, livestock poisoning. All types and parts of Lantana are considered poisonous to stock. Red flowering Lantana is the most dangerous. Stock poisoning is common. It happens when new animals are introduced into Lantana areas and there is no other feed. Cattle used to graze Lantana infestation lands are less likely to eat it. Early symptoms of Lantana poisoning include depression, loss of appetite, constipation, frequent urination, jaundice for 1 or 2 days, inflamed eyes with a slight discharge, mouth area becoming inflamed, moist and very sensitive with a pink nose, bare skin becoming very sensitive to light, red and swollen, or may crack, turn black and die. Stock usually die 1 to 4 weeks after symptoms appear. Death is slow and painful from liver and kidney failure. Some animals have heart damage. Wow. Now, if this doesn't say that this is a worthwhile plant to get rid of, what is? Okay, this is something that's been put up by the Bega Valley, New South Wales Gov site, and explaining pretty much it's from Central America and pretty much what I was saying before. But right at the very, very bottom here, right here, it says Lantana is a fire hazard. Green plants may be difficult to ignite, but in hot, windy conditions, it burns fiercely, increasing the impact of a fire on the native vegetation it is growing among. Lantana grows best in areas with a high rainfall and fertilised soil. However, it has spread into areas which are seasonally quite dry, such as the Darling Downs in Queensland, and it is actively spreading southwards on the far south coast and into areas of less favourable soils. It has come now nowhere near occupying its full potential range in Australia, but if it does, so the cost, both financial and environmental, will be massive. What does that say? Are we not paying enough attention to this weed? Okay, I sent a letter to New South Wales Fire Services, the RFS, and I made a complaint about the Lantana being a bit of a fire hazard. Now here in this letter back to me from here, it says, I wish to advise that an officer from the service has inspected the area of concern and has determined that the land does not represent a significant bushfire threat at this time. Oh boy. I complain about Lantana because it is known to be highly inflammable, like I just showed you in the previous Bega report. And now I've got RFS telling me there's no reason to worry about it now, it's not dry yet. But hey, what happens when it does dry out? And what happens when fire season does come on? Is it a bushfire threat then? And even more worse than this is it makes the bush go up quicker. It's more flammable. And that's really the safety for our volunteer firefighters and the RFS. Why would you want that in the bush to fight that fire? If it's that, going to set up the bush a lot higher in fire. Why would you leave it there? Why would you not do something about it to make it safe? This world I just don't understand anymore. And here, I've seen some contracts with council that has this word eradicate. And I've got it here on the dictionary. It says destroy completely, put an end to. The disease has been eradicated from the world. So when we get these contractors that don't fulfill their contracts, why are they being paid?